think we're good. All right, welcome everyone. Another video of Frodo's journey towards Mordor. It's let's get rid of the overlay. We don't need that, but we are going to have to put it on to see if we can find these trolls. So I made a few mistakes in the last video. It turns out that the party went south of the road rather than north of the road, and of course I got lost anyway, so that was kind of exciting. But what we're going to talk about in this ramble, we're going to head for the last bridge, which was cleared by Glorfindel in the novel. I did a bit of reading actually and checking out and what's going on, so sorry for the spoilers. But cleared by Glorfindel, and Aragorn went down to check out the bridge, and he discovered an elf stone on the bridge, and took that as meaning that the bridge was safe to cross. So here we are heading over the last bridge towards the Troll Shaws. Now, in this particular ramble, I think that what we're going to do, we're going to head from here at least to the forge, but we might try and get to Rivendell. We'll see how the time goes. What we're going to talk about in this ramble is the Rings of Power. Have you watched the Rings of Power? Amazon, allegedly, they spent $1 billion, $1 billion, buying the rights for the Rings of Power. And one has to wonder why they did this. So let's try and figure it out, because it doesn't seem really that it was their intention. We're heading into the Troll Shaws now. You see all the leaves. The other thing you'll notice actually is that I have reduced the level of frill, as it's called in Lotro, a little bit less undergrowth. This is actually quite useful in the game, because in the undergrowth you can't see most of the stuff that you need to kill or you need to pick up. But in this particular case, I just removed it because I think the video is probably going to come out better without having to figure out. It'd be nice to get rid of those rings too. Let's just do that. Escape. Go to options and we'll get rid of the rings over the animals. That looks a bit nonsense. You turn off the overlay, and then that doesn't work. So turn off the UI settings, and I think it's this floating floating experience, floating overhead quest icons. Let's get rid of that. Okay, good. Let's go back to F12. Right. Actually, let's see if I can figure out where these. I have a feeling Frodo has this guy has found this. We've got to try and get there. You see the Stone Troll's Glade? And they do find them in the book. And they are there in the movies as well. So all we have to do is try and figure out where these Stone Trolls actually are. So we might have to run around a couple of circles to see if we can figure out how to get to them. Still, Rings of Power. Rings of Power. Where do we start with the Rings of Power? Have you watched it? Has anybody watched it who has actually read the appendices of Lord of the Rings? Because that's what they bought. They bought the rights to the appendices of Lord of the Rings. This is the footnotes, essentially, of Lord of the Rings, the novel. The footnotes of Lord of the Rings, the novel, as book rights. I wish I could write a novel where the footnotes could get me $1 billion. But anyway, they bought these rights for $1 billion, presumably in order to catch up on, I don't know, Game of Thrones or something that some big franchise. And the idea is you buy a huge franchise that's everybody already knows about. Of course you know about Lord of the Rings because it's amazing. And it's brilliantly constructed, and it makes sense. And it's a great idea to make a television series out of Lord of the Rings prehistory. I mean, Amazon are doing it with what's the one that they've got? It's not the Rings of Power. What's their first stab at this? They're doing the prequel of the Game of Thrones, which fair enough. I mean, they've got the writer, so they can bomb along with the rider. And as far as I can tell, I haven't watched it. If you have watched it, let me know. But I haven't watched it, and I think from what I've heard, it's not that great. But even so, they've got the writer on board, so they can't really mess up the writer's vision. I'm going the wrong way, aren't I? Let's just have a check of this map. Need to get the overlay off. There's me. There's the trolls. Okay. Let's see. There's looks like there's some kind of path there. The paths aren't obvious in these maps, which is kind of annoying. I think we'll go this way and see if we can go right soon. And then we'll see. Oh, look, there's a path up the hill there. We might try that. So anyway. So the Rings of Power seems to be some kind of insane installation program of some kind, as far as I can tell. So take, for example, let's get rid of that. Take, for example, you've got the idea, perhaps, there's a troll, look, hey, troll. Say, for example, you've got a new ringtone you're going to establish, and you want to have 3 ringtones for the elves. Well, you get the guy who's good at writing ringtone programs, Celebrimbor, to write the ringtone, and he goes off and writes the ringtone. And you suggest Celebrimbor, hey, these ringtones would be kind of handy, and they'd sound really cool. And Celebrimbor goes, hey, that's a good idea. And so he makes ringtones, and then we're heading the right direction now, I think. And the elves get them, and they say, hey, these are kind of cool. And the ringtones do things like make the tree go greener, apparently, which is good and cool, and everybody can stay in Middle Earth and all the rest of it. And Sauron goes, hey, hang on a second, I forgot to install a few subroutines in there. I forgot to install a few little bits of malware that I really meant to install in those ringtones, and I need to rethink. So he says, okay, well let's do dwarfs. Let's get some 7 rings for the dwarfs. This is a story so far, by the way, in terms of ringtones. And so he goes, ringtones for the dwarfs. And Celebrimbor says, hey, that's a good idea. Let's do ringtones for the dwarfs, because they're kind of cool, funky guys. And Celebrimbor says, let's make them like this. And Sauron goes, well, hang on, I'm going to get the malware into this time. And he starts infiltrating the ringtones with malware. But unfortunately, what Celebrimbor does is he installs one of the malware programs in the top level directory. He installs Greedy Pig in the top level directory, and as a result, when the rings are handed over to the dwarfs, the only malware that's working is Greedy Pig, and so we get Durin, whoever it is, the Durin King, the first one, goes absolutely nuts about digging up Mithril in Khazad-dûm, or Moria, or whatever it is you want to call it. And for some reason, the Balrog is turning up about 2,000 years too early, but he's in there as well. Durin's son, Durin also, Durin 2 and Durin 3, something like that. Anyway, his wife, who is doesn't look like a dwarf at all, which is what the movie said, but there's actually Tolkien says nothing about this. Durin's wife says, hey, hang on, you don't want to go down there, there's evil stuff. And then Durin eventually goes down there with Greedy Pig, whatever is 3.2, the malware that Sauron's installed, and it's in the top level directly, so none of the other malware kicks in. So bad luck. And they start digging up. And anyway, Sauron's beside himself again, ropeable, and he's really annoyed. By the way, I was getting going with that story, but let's just notice here that we've got the stone trolls. Remember the trolls in the Hobbit that were turned into stone by Bilbo and the dwarfs in their first journey to defeat Smaug are in the game in Lotro, and here they are in the Trollshaws. And if you find the right spot, which we did by absolute pure coincidence, and we're going to just pull up the map again in a second just to have a look and see which way we're going to go. I think we're going to go that way. We're going to go straight. That's good. And we're going to try and get down to the Fords of Ice, not the Fords of Isen, the Bruinen Fords. So here we go. Say bye-bye to the trolls. Bye-bye, trolls. Anyway, where are we at? Okay, yeah, so Sauron goes, hang on a second, that didn't work either, because Celebrimbor's a nutcase, and he's installed the malware in all the wrong places. So he goes, right, let's do 9 ringtones for men. And the ringtones for men, he says, I'm going to take complete control here, and he takes over Celebrimbor, locks him in a room, does the whole Helsinki, no, it's not Helsinki, is it? Does the whole, what's the capital of Sweden? Can't remember. Sweden. Anyway, that place does that syndrome on them, and they have to Celebrimbor locked away in this thing. He's being gaslit in all sorts of directions, and he bangs away at the 9 rings for men. Sauron's hanging around the background installing malware like crazy, and that's good so far. So Sauron's happy. Celebrimbor's nuts. Everybody else is running around. I mean, to be perfectly honest, there's other stuff going on in the Rings of Power that I've absolutely no idea why it's happening. I mean, there's a whole Gandalf story looking for a staff, and it doesn't make any sense. Tom Bombadil showed up. Well, he's always been there. It's the only one, actually, the only character in this show that makes sense, because he's always been around, so you've always got a chance of running into Tom. Apart from that, you have these hobbits running around the place who are just doing nothing, really. There's nothing happening there at all. They just seem to be there to give Gandalf some reason to be, even though Gandalf's there 2,000 years too early. So all that's kind of crazy. And then what happens? What happens next? Okay, so Sauron's getting powerful because he's making rings that don't work. So everybody decides they're going to hone in on Sauron and try and kill him. And so you got Galadriel and the elves are heading for Sauron, and you've got this guy Atari, who's another developer of ringtones, who doesn't want anybody else to make a ringtone, or at least he wants to capitalize the market. So he goes for some kind of takeover bid, piles a load of orcs in, which is the currency in Middle-earth at this stage, even though they're nice orcs and they like babies and things, and they have families and stuff like that, which is completely different to the orcs of Tolkien. I want to talk about the orcs of Tolkien at some stage to you all, but that's going to be another story altogether. Anyway, he throws a whole lot of orcs at the problem, in the same way that modern businessmen throw a whole lot of money at the problem. But Sauron's not buying. He's not selling. He's not going to sell for these orcs. In fact, he's going to do a kind of counter takeover bid, and he's going to take over the orcs. And he manages, oh, there's some platinum, we'll have that. He takes over the orcs and eventually kills Atari and destroys the Atari business, which is essentially what happened in real life, really. You know, Atari died. And so Atari disappeared. I hope there's no spoilers here. Don't watch this video unless you've seen the movie, seen the show. Although, to be perfectly honest, I have to say that. Anyway, let's carry on. I'll come to that in conclusions time. So the conclusions, not the conclusions. So what's happening next? Oh yes, Galadriel and Elrond meet at Atari's camp, and Atari lets them have a chat, and Elrond kisses Galadriel. Galadriel, later in Lord of the Rings, Galadriel is Elrond's mother-in-law. So that was kind of weird. I'll leave that one with you. And so allows Galadriel to escape from this Atari guy. I forgot to mention he was captured, but it's practically pointless because it didn't make any difference to the plot. And then Atari is trying to attack Eregion, and he gets killed, and Sauron takes over the army, and everybody dies who wasn't part of the main character list because they don't want to employ them in the next series, I guess. Except, and then, I don't know. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea what they're trying to say. The appendices of Lord of the Rings are perfectly clear on the timeline and exactly what happens, but then it's only one sentence after another. Whereas what Amazon have done is they've tried to. By the way, this is the Forge of Bruinen, so if you there is a skirmish that you can do where you can get the river to come strolling down, but it's not very exciting. Look at the beautiful sky you get. Isn't that lovely? Huh? That's lovely. Anyway, I think we got here quick enough, so we're going to head for Rivendell. It's a quick dash up here, and we'll see if we can get to the top of Rivendell Valley before my time runs out, which is probably about 3 minutes from here. This is actually going to take a bit of running. So, Rings of Power summary. What is Amazon's purpose in this? So Amazon bought this. They're making it on Amazon Prime. They've done 2 series. They paid $1 billion for the rights to the appendices from a book, which is bizarre. And they completely ignored the appendices, pretty much. They've got a vague story that they seem to have made up themselves about what happens. And none of it makes any sense in Tolkien lore, if you like. The canon of Tolkien. None of it makes any sense. None of it. Is it a good story if you ignore the fact that it doesn't make any sense in terms of Tolkien? I don't think so. I think it... I mean, jury's out here because some people might be enjoying it. I mean, there's certainly the odd special effect and plenty of people getting shot with arrows and monsters and things. But I think you'd have to be 5 not to realise that there's no continuity between any of this stuff. There's nothing that holds it all together. So, I don't know. Jury's out. I mean, I don't know if Amazon's going to fund the 3rd series because I'm sure that the viewer numbers have gone down incredibly. But let me give you a piece of advice. If you do want to watch it, watch it with eyes wide open. Because the one thing that it has spawned is a vast amount of hilarious, and I'm talking hilarious, I'm talking laugh out loud hilarious, righteous indignation on YouTube. Get onto those YouTube videos and watch, because it is absolutely hilarious. There's a guy called Charlie Hopkinson, does a beautiful thing. He doesn't criticize too much. He just has the characters sitting back saying, "Is that me? Is that really what I did?" You know, trying to work it all out. He does a kind of voices and deep fake faces thing. There's also the Critical Drinker, who I quite enjoy, although he's not everyone's taste, I imagine. But Critical Drinker has absolutely ripped into it. And there's a whole bunch of others out there. And really, if the Rings of Power has achieved nothing else, what it has achieved is a level of hilarious criticism that is unrivaled by any other television, I think, that's ever existed. I mean, you can rip through some really terrible stuff from the past. I mean, seriously, what was Spaceballs? Let's be honest, it was terrible. But there's only one film. This has gone on for 2 series. Every episode's just got worse. The penultimate episode was terrible. The final episode is awful. So that's hilarious. The question is, where's it going to go from here? Well, what are we left with? We're left with Galadriel and Elrond escaping off to Rivendell. They've all founded Rivendell. Gil-galad's running around the place, but a minor character in this, even though he's the king of the elves. And we've got them off there. We've got these men running around the place who are presumably going to turn into the ring wraiths, or possibly, the damned in the mountains. Or the path of the dead. That's going to happen. I mean, that young, annoying teenager with the improbably deep voice. I don't know what his name is. His character is so unmemorable. But is he going to turn out to be... No, he couldn't. He's not going to turn out to be the Witch King of Angmar, is he? Tell me it's not true. Seriously. And then you've got various things going on in Numenor. There's Fall of Numenor is happening at the same time, which it didn't happen it didn't happen at the same time at all in Tolkien's lore. But anyway, we're here at the Gates of Imladris. I have had enough of talking about the Rings of Power. Next time we're going to talk about something different. I think we'll talk about Tolkien's orcs. Because that's an interesting thing. And we will visit, let's get down here and see if we can see a good view of the valley. We will pop into Elrond's house, have a look around it. In our next video, we'll see if we can figure out where the events of the Council of Elrond took place. And if I can just stand up here, we can get a view of the valley. There's Elrond, the last homely house over there. And if we look to the other sides, we can see the whole valley, and there's various stuff in there for us to look at and to visit. That might not be the homely house. We're just going to run down a little bit further. But while we're up here, we'll have a look at the Misty Mountains, which we're going to head for if we ever do a Hobbit version of this. But this is a Lord of the Rings version, so we're not going to go that way when we leave Rivendell. But we're going to pop down and have a quick look at the homely house from a distance. There it is over there. Actually, it's a much nicer building than the one we looked at. And you see the waterfall. And as you can see, the graphics in this game are absolutely beautiful, even though they're a bit old-fashioned and they're not 4K or anything like that. They are beautiful. There's the last homely house. There's the Misty Mountains up behind. And I will see you in the next video for part 6. This was part 5. We went from the last bridge to Rivendell. We're going to have a tour around Rivendell in our next video, because I'm sure the hobbits, when they were here, they had a good look around. And then we'll make our way into Eregion, which is where the Fellowship went after the Council of Elrond. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed it, leave a comment. Leave any comments if you think that. I know I just talk rubbish, but I hope you enjoy it. And maybe it's just a calm thing to listen to on a dark night of the winter. And I'll see you next time.